Hello, my name is Željko Zidarić, and I am the founder of the Civic Innovation Incubator. I'm a political conservative, and this video lecture is about my personal political compass, my personal principles and values. This is part 5 in a 6-part series on the fundamentals of conservatism. This video is divided into 6 parts. We start with an introduction and objectives, followed by a look at a reality model that can be used as the basis for understanding political interests. Then we have the look at the basis for political parties, an introduction to personal values, and then the most detailed part, my personal compass, my principles and values, followed by some suggestions for further reading. I stand for truth, I stand for freedom, I stand for responsibility. What do you stand for? Do you know? This video is not about what you should believe. This video is about what I believe at this point in time. This lecture will help you understand a bit about conservatism by understanding a bit about me. I hope to help and motivate you to start your own process of self-analysis so that you can understand what is important to you and in what direction, towards what, your personal compass points. As activists, one of our goals is to spread the message of conservatism, help people determine that conservatism best aligns with their own personal principles and values, and increase the size and advocacy of the conservative movement. Telling the conservative story is difficult because there is no plotline, there is no ideology, no utopia that we want to build. But we will need to get more proactive in defending the values that we desire to live by. We can tell a story of our values, and hopefully people will want to align with our values. When I tell parts of my conservative story, I like to talk about my guiding principles and values, touchy-feely stuff that's easy to understand and connect with. I'll tell you about the principles and values that act as my political compass in the second part of this presentation. But first, I need to provide you with some background information to give you better context. Reality is very complex. Models are a way to simplify complex issues and processes. The Franklin-Covey reality model shows how we, as individuals, act to satisfy the needs that we have in life. Politics is an aggregation of the needs of the many, and so this could be a valid tool here as well. The first part of the model is a look at our needs. Needs are the start of everything. Everything we do in life is in response to satisfying some need, be it physical or psychic, that is non-physical or spiritual. The second part of the reality model is the belief window. Some see it as an invisible window hanging in front of a person's face and through which the world is perceived. But more than just seeing the world, our belief window actually helps determine how we interact with the world. This part is the main focus of this presentation. Based on the way that we see the world, we create rules that help simplify our life. These become our habits. As an example, if it is Friday, we go out and party. If your career is important to you, then you will allocate more time to it so that you can be more successful at work and have faster career progression. Having beliefs and rules does not necessarily guarantee results. We need to take action. Are we competent and capable in the actions that we take? Do we in fact even take action? When the results of our behavior meet our needs over time, we experience inner peace, happiness, and we progress in life. If the results of our behavior do not meet our needs, then we suffer from frustration and unhappiness. The last part of this reality model is the feedback mechanism. Did we accomplish the results that we wanted to achieve? If not, why not? If we consistently do not get the desired results, then we need to assess our needs. Are they realistic? Are our values aligned with our goals, and are we executing on our goals properly through our rules and actions? If we fail in fulfilling our needs, then we must seek to change either in what we want, in our belief window, or what we do to satisfy our needs. Now let's look at needs and beliefs in greater detail. Like all living organisms, humans have a certain set of basic needs that must be met so that we can continue to survive. These needs are not just physical, they also include social and aspirational needs. The Franklin-Covey reality model is based on 4 basic categories of needs: to live, which is to survive; to experience variety; to love and to be loved; and to have value, that is, to feel important. Another familiar model is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which states that lower level survival needs must be met before higher level needs can become important. There is also the concept of falling back into lower level needs if those needs are not met or frustrated. As a being with a mind, consciousness, and a soul, I act on more than a purely instinctive nature. I develop abstract principles about what is right and wrong. My values determine what is worth working towards and what is not. And I also have codes that determine what I can do to accomplish my goals. My belief window is based on my age and my experience, and my belief window can be changed. Growth is the process of changing the beliefs in my belief window. Groups, like individuals, can have collective belief windows. Our belief window is made up of a few parts. Principles are the natural laws or fundamental truths that exist whether we know about them or not. They are universal and timeless. These include things like courage, compassion, and responsibility, as well as justice. Each of us discovers, prioritizes, and applies these principles in our decision-making. These truths are based on a long period of observation, education, and intuition or gut feel. They become our core, our basis for judging integrity and the concepts of good and bad. Our values, based on our principles, are self-chosen and define what is important to us, and are guides for our standards of behavior. Values motivate us in our actions. Our values are influenced by our upbringing, society, and our personal reflection. Our non-physical needs can be based on intrinsic or extrinsic values. Society functions because we make collective agreements on how we interact with one another. Our codes of behavior constrain us in what we can do. What is understood as legal or criminal in our society is determined by our legal codes, while what is right or wrong is defined by our morals and our ethics. Our needs and our beliefs create our political interests. Our basic needs are pretty much universal: survival, safety, and a job to support ourselves and our family. Our more complicated social and psychic needs is where we start to diverge. What is the role of government? Who is responsible for what? How much do we pay in taxes? That is where we come into conflict. This is where our values come into the equation. Our interests are met by government policies and programs. Political parties develop programs and policies to represent the interests of their constituents, hopefully a majority of the constituents. Because we have varying needs and belief windows, we have various political interests and various political parties that seek to fulfill those interests. We need to understand what we stand for, and most importantly, why. To unite into some form of political unit, we need to group ourselves into constituencies with common interests, beliefs. Compromise is vital because a political group that is too focused, too specific, and too exclusive is too small to wield any sort of influence. In order to create a political unit with power, it must have sufficient mass, that is, votes on election day. To create this, we need to focus more on the major issues that unite us than the minor issues that divide us. Our individualism is one of our greatest strengths, but is also one of our greatest political weaknesses. Our inherent individualism and competitiveness, which helps us succeed everywhere else, prevents us from working together, and this is where we conservatives have a problem. We hold certain beliefs strongly, and we find it more difficult to compromise than do our collectivist progressive opponents. Even though we believe in much of the same fundamentals, we divide ourselves on the prioritization of issues, with the biggest division being between social and economic conservatives. But no matter if we are paleo or progressive, economic or social, libertarian or crunchy, from a policy perspective, we need to look at the fundamentals on which we agree as opposed to the tactics and self-interests that divide us. The commonality is the common beliefs that we have. These are the principles and values. If we can start policy negotiations based on our agreements in beliefs, then our chances for success will increase. People are very familiar with the mantras from the political right. Sound bites such as smaller government, lower taxes, more personal freedom. And they believe that these are some of the so-called conservative principles. What people must understand is that these sound bites symbolize only the resulting policies of applying the conservative principles and do not constitute the founding principles themselves. Conservatism is not an ideology, but a worldview, a set of dispositions, a set of guiding principles and values. Conservatism generally opposes all systems and ideologies as unworkable and dangerous to liberties of individuals and communities. Conservatism seeks to conserve the hard-won liberties that we have struggled for over the centuries. We need to talk more about these foundational principles and values rather than the dogmas and the policies which sometimes divide us. So where do we start? Well, I want to start talking about myself. I'm a Christian, a Catholic to be specific, but that's not very important. One of my fundamentals is my relationship with God. You might not believe in God, and I respect that. You can replace whatever I say about God with your own ideas about natural law or a universal truth. I know that God gave me free will, and God will judge me on how I use my free will. I also know that God gave you free will, and he or she will judge you on your actions. God did not empower me to act on his behalf, to tell you what to do, to take away your free will. If I try to take away your free will, then I destroy your relationship with God and with God's love and judgment. I believe every person has great potential, but can only attain their potential through their own free will and personal exploration. With the foundations and context set, we can start the main part of this presentation. I'm not going to talk about conservative philosophy or values. These will be my principles and my values. I'll use the concept of a compass as it shows a direction to an attraction that I feel towards a certain political force. You might not agree with some of the things that I believe, and I expect that and welcome it. I would love to hear from you and learn your opinions, and maybe I can add some of those to mine. I will not use philosophers to justify my beliefs because while there are many philosophers that can be quoted to support my ideas, there are also many philosophers and intellectuals that can be quoted to attack my ideas. Tomorrow, I might not believe exactly what I believe today because as I learn and experience, I grow, and so does my worldview. I'm a student of human nature. We humans are beings that exist in two planes: the physical, corporeal plane, the world in our bodies, the matter that our senses can perceive. We're also beings that exist in a psychic or spiritual plane. I do not mean extrasensory perception, but the non-physical plane, that of the soul, the mind, and of intuition. Because we live in two planes of reality, we have two different types of needs. Those needs that help us survive and those needs that help us to thrive. I believe that we are not born as an empty slate. See my videos on human nature. And I want to work with innate human nature rather than against it or try to change it. I'm a human being born of two parents, but independent of them and also independent of society. I am not a bee. I don't live in a hive serving a queen bee. I'm a unique individual. We are all unique individuals, autonomous beings. We have a unique starting point and we have unique talents. We develop a unique set of experiences and beliefs. I would love to be able to see through someone else's eyes and feel what they feel and think what they think, but our reality is that I can't. I need to develop an individual potential to prosper as an autonomous being. I am guided by my own moral conscience and motivations. If there's interference from society or state, then I can't reach my unique potential. My drive for self-actualization will be frustrated. What is the point to living if I am a means to an end, someone else's end, rather than an end in myself? I know and I accept that I am a flawed and limited being. We're all flawed and limited. My spiritual weaknesses sometimes guide me in the wrong direction. My flaws include fear, greed, envy, pride, lust, and gluttony. My intelligence is also flawed. My brain, while quite good, is not perfect. My ability to process data, reasoning, is limited, as is the data set. The knowledge that I have is also limited. I also know that you are also limited intellectually just as I am, and so I do not necessarily have to believe that you're any better than I am at developing better solutions. Emotion trumps reason and messes things up for me. I think it does for you too. Because I accept that I'm not perfect, I know that I must act with prudence, cautiousness with some wisdom thrown into the mix. I respect your uniqueness and your flaws. I do not expect perfection from you. I hope that you also realize this and accept me for who I am, with all my flaws and my uniqueness. I also hope that we realize that flawed and perfectible people can never design a perfect solution to any problem that involves other people. Now that we understand my core essence as a being, a flawed individual, the next step is to look at my foundational principles. For this model, I've decided to be simple and use 4 guiding principles. Each of us is unique. You might want to use 5, 6, or more. My first principle is truth. There is so much to know, and we know so little. I believe that truth is objective and not relative or subjective. Objectively true means that it is true for all people of all cultures and times, even if they do not know or recognize it to be true. One basic truth is that people need air and water to live. I believe in deontological ethics. We have rules that define what is good or bad, right or wrong. The acts themselves are inherently good or bad, regardless of the consequences of those actions. I do not believe that the ends justify the means, as they do in teleologic or consequentialist ethics. My second principle is purpose. I believe that I exist for some reason. There is a meaning to life. I have no clue yet what the purpose of my life is, but only I can discover it. I have to discover it and act on it. I hope that there's more to life than eating, procreating, and dying. That would be so mechanistic and pointless for such intelligent, conscious beings as ourselves. Understanding my purpose is like understanding the truth of myself. While together we can understand the truth of the physical world we live in, the speed of light, gravity, E equals mc squared, and stuff like that, but only I can understand my individual truth and purpose. No one can dictate a purpose to me. If they do, and I accept it, then I just become a cog in someone else's machine. Directly connected to the purpose of life, my third principle is free will. Free will is the ability to make choices without internal constraints. Without free will, there is no concept of moral responsibility for what we choose to do. There has been much debate over the millennia about the reality of free will, some saying that it does not exist. I know that I'm guided by instincts and emotions at the subconscious level. I know that sometimes I act without thinking, but I also know that I am ultimately responsible for the choices that I make. Regardless of which direction the winds of the subconscious blow, I need to steer the rudder so that the ship goes in the proper direction. If I do not have free will, then I'm nothing but an animal, a programmed machine that just reacts and has no responsibility. I choose not to be that. My fourth principle is dignity. Dignity is the quality of being worthy of honor, a sense of pride in oneself, being respected, and having self-respect. I want to live in dignity, but I also want you to live a life of dignity as well. I want you to be valued, and I want you to receive ethical treatment. I hope you'll also treat me ethically. This is the most touchy-feely and subjective of my principles because it is not just about the person, but it's about the quality of life that they live. Dignity is difficult to define as an ends, and some classical liberal hardliners say that it's potentially dangerous to try to define it because it leads to issues of social justice and socialism. But I think that any of us that have any level of empathy can agree that we do not want anyone living and suffering from humiliation, objectification, degradation, or dehumanization of any sort. Consider this. While it might be humiliating to eat leftover food from someone else's garbage, I do not find a welfare state dignified because it is also humiliating to be dependent on someone else for your survival. I know that I'm not a solitary being living alone in a state of nature. I'm a social being living with others in a community. I hope that you notice that while some of my principles are about me, purpose of life, and free will, the principles of truth and dignity are about us, the we. The next part of the compass are a set of 8 values related to my principles. These are concepts that I find important, concepts that motivate me, that determine my morals and ethics. My first value is learning. Learning is the action of gaining knowledge, of understanding reality, gaining wisdom, of getting closer to the truth. Learning requires humility, admitting that we do not know, wanting to learn. Learning is the movement away from ignorance and towards truth. We need to be active in gaining truth, as the truth will not come to us on its own. Learning should be based on critical thinking and some creativity. Just accepting what others teach us absolves us of our responsibility for critical thinking and developing new ideas and knowledge, which can be added to the knowledge pool of humanity. The second value is to flourish. To flourish is to grow well, to reach our potential, to become what we can, the most that we can be. It's self-actualization. It is about accepting yourself and cultivating your strengths, about being successful and prosperous, not just in monetary or extrinsic ways, but also in intrinsic ways as well. Flourishing is about overcoming the frustrations we experience in life and attaining fulfillment. It is about not being hollow and empty. It is about finding well-being and happiness. My third value is liberty. Liberty is the keystone of libertarianism. Some see it as an end. I see it as a means, a necessary means so that we can accomplish our ends. Liberty is about freedom of action. It is an absence of external impediments. Liberty is the power of acting or of not acting according to the determination of the will. Free will determines the ends, while liberty is part of the means used to accomplish those ends. We need liberty to move up Maslow's hierarchy of needs so that we can reach our goal of self-actualization. Liberty must be tempered by responsibility, moderation, and temperance. Just because we can do something, should we do it to excess? We need to have self-restraint over our impulses, and this is where the concept of the virtues comes into the equation. Solidarity is my fourth value. We're all in this life together. Solidarity is the notion that we're connected with our neighbors. We have a responsibility to one another, to the people down the streets, throughout the country, and around the world. We can't delegate our responsibilities to the state. Solidarity has been taken and perverted by the collectivists and progressives for their own aims. But the collectivists utilize the concept of solidarity without the counterbalance of subsidiarity. The collectivist goal is a paternalistic centralized state. Subsidiarity is equally important to give proper context for solidarity. It's the idea that problems should be solved at the smallest and most intimate level possible. You should help your neighbor rather than wait for the government to act as an intermediary. Charity is a part of subsidiarity and solidarity. Charity shouldn't be a faceless bureaucracy doling out tax dollars, but people helping people and building community. The concepts of the balance of solidarity, subsidiarity, and charity deserve a week-long discussion in depth. And this is one of the core issues, I believe, that divides conservatives and libertarians. Closely connected to solidarity is my fifth value of reciprocity. Society functions due to the concept of reciprocity. It is about mutual goodwill, concessions, compromises, and the return of favors that we do for one another. It is about fairness. It motivates and fosters cooperative behavior. Reciprocity is about giving, but also about self-interest, because we know that if we help others in their time of need, they will reciprocate and help us in our time of need. Reciprocity is the golden rule. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. My sixth value is justice, one of the cardinal virtues. It is a concept of fairness, moral rightness based on ethics, law, religion, and equity. It is about behaving and treating others in a just manner. We have an aversion to inequity. We do not like it when some people get more than their fair share, be it either in resources or being above the law. Justice is about being treated the same regardless of race, gender, or age. Justice is getting what you earn, and equity before the law to get what you deserve. Justice means that crimes are punished and that the punishment fits the crime. Justice, and what is just, depends on your ethical system. Remember that I do not believe that the ends justify the means. There is a lot of debate about what we deserve. Consequentialists believe in doing whatever is required to achieve social justice. I, on the other hand, do not subscribe to this philosophy. Action is my seventh value. Having a purpose and having liberty is pointless if we do not act on our purpose and free will. What is the meaning of life if we do not act? In society and politics, we have a responsibility, no, an obligation to act. Because all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. The cardinal virtue of fortitude, the willingness to put oneself in danger if necessary, helps us overcome our fears and gives us courage to act and accomplish what is needed. Conscience is my eighth value. This is the ability and intuition to determine which of my actions are morally right or wrong, and the foundation of my feelings of guilt or remorse when I do bad things. It is the voice within and the inner light that guides me. It is connected to integrity as well as to the concepts of righteousness, also known as rectitude. Conscience might be an instinct biologically hardwired into us, making society and social interaction possible. Our conscience, coupled with empathy, counters our egos, our self-centeredness, and our selfishness. That is the core of my compass. The values discussed are the ones that can be seen as political values. I think that the 8 values I spoke about are the bedrock for other values, and so I believe they are important enough to promote and to fight for. There are many other personal values that guide me in how I live my life, from the goals that I set to how I fulfill them. To flourish, I believe in nonconformity which is difficult since I also believe in the value of enduring moral order, tradition, and things that unite the community. I believe in adventure, enthusiasm, and silliness. Successful action depends on the values of bravery, discipline, endurance, and self-reliance, to mention but a few. Justice requires righteousness, harmony, and mercy, while solidarity requires duty, equality, empathy, and benevolence. Learning is only learning when it is lifelong. It never stops. To be an effective learner, to learn the truth, you need to have curiosity and cleverness to help with your critical thinking. You need to be creative to discover or create new knowledge. That's a lot of values that I just mentioned. You understand who I am as a person a little bit better, but you might be wondering, where does the issue of conservatism enter the model? There are a few key structural principles of conservatism, and I believe that only under these principles can I live by my values. We conservatives believe in rule of law rather than rule of man. Society should be governed by just laws that apply to everyone equally. No one is above the law, not the rich, not the powerful, not the government officials, and not the police. There is no justice under rule of man or committee. There is no truth nor freedom of conscience when I have to live by someone's dogma and ideology. A free market is mandatory because a free market is about competition. Competition in economic, intellectual, and social areas. Competition ensures progress based on the best ideas winning. Competition is about natural evolution. A free market is against any sort of central planning. Centrally planned utopias have been proven to be impossible to build. We oppose political correctness because it takes away from the liberty to find out our own truths. And we oppose social engineering because that takes away the liberty of natural social evolution. If I do not have the rights to ownership and enjoyment of private property, then why would I want to make anything? If we are responsible for our own survival and our success, if we must take risks in order to get rewards, then we deserve to enjoy the fruits of our labor and our risks. We must have the right to ownership and enjoyment of what we make and earn. I am not motivated by laboring for someone else's enjoyment, unless, of course, it is my family. Big government takes away our liberties. We do not want an anti-state. Conservatives seek a limited government because we know that people are flawed and we know that power corrupts. Because we are individualists, we want to make our own decisions. We do not want some government officials deciding for us. Who are they to know what I need? Only I know what is best for me and my family. And even if I do make a mistake, at least it is my mistake and I will live with it. Conservatives believe in an enduring moral order, which is custom, convention, and continuity. Order signifies harmony both in the inner order of the soul and the outer order of the commonwealth. Conservatives believe that society is today what it is because of a collapse in our belief in an enduring moral order, of our concepts of right and wrong, our concepts of justice and honor. We conservatives know that a successful society is not just about the here and now. An extension of the concept of solidarity is the concept of the partnership of past, present, and future generations. We know that we do not live in isolation physically from others in society. We affect them, and they affect us, and we have to be responsible to one another. In the same way, we know that we do not live in temporal isolation from those that lived before us and from those that will live after us. We live in a society that was built over a multitude of generations, each generation adding something: knowledge, infrastructure, freedom. I believe that we need to be considerate of the generations that will follow us. We must leave them a healthy environment and a healthy government to enjoy. We can't leave them a polluted planet, huge debts, and a tyrannical government. To summarize conservatism as succinctly as I possibly can, I'd say that the core essence of conservatism is the right to make individual choices, taking responsibility for those choices, and living with the results of those choices. Your next step is now to understand who you are. What are your values? What are your organizational values? Understanding your values is critical for your organization or party because your values are the key to developing and managing your brand. We know that the concept of brand is the alignment of values between the organization and the customers, between your party and your constituents. You need to understand the values you represent before you can start telling your story and have people feel attracted to you and support you. So, what is your political compass? What direction does it point towards? I hope you like to learn because there's 2,500 years worth of learning that you can do to understand your values and your political compass a little bit better. Some interesting reading, some modern reading that you could start with includes Mortimer Adler's 6 Great Ideas. These are liberty, equality, and justice, values that we live by in society. Truth, goodness, and beauty are the ones that we judge by. You can then look into the 4 pillars of conservatism, or Russell Kirk's 10 principles of conservatism. Mahatma Gandhi was not a conservative, but we can still learn from him. Remember, be open-minded. Gandhi wrote the 7 dangers to human virtue: wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, business without ethics, science without humanity, religion without sacrifice, and politics without principle. Arun Gandhi added rights without responsibilities. Do those not sound like they align with our conservative philosophies? If you want to go even deeper, study the concepts of virtues, including the writings of Plato, Socrates, and St. Thomas. I hope that when you get close to understanding yourself, you never truly will fully understand yourself, but when you come close to understanding, I hope that you remember to lead, to pass on what you have learned, but to lead by action and example, to attract people to you, not by proselytizing. Remember humility. You are just one person with one set of ideas. Do not think that your ideas are the ideal. There is no conservative ideal. There is no dogma or ideology. Just a worldview and values and respect.